Dallas on a November morning gleamed like a glass panel polished by sunlight. The sky, clear as crystal, mirrored off the tall buildings, slid down the freshly paved asphalt, and bounced back from the massive glass facade of Preston Tower, the headquarters of Texas's largest construction corporation. In the ivory marble lobby, footsteps echoed with the precision and chill of a clock's ticking hands. Samuel Preston arrived earlier than usual. He wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit, a navy tie, and polished Oxford shoes that caught the soft yellow glow of the lights. Every strand of his salt and pepper hair was neatly in place, and no wrinkle marred his face except for the faint depth in his grey eyes, the same eyes that had long made the financial world uneasy. At 42, Samuel embodied the American dream realized. A carpenter's son from Austin turned self-made billionaire, master of an empire worth billions. Yet only Samuel knew that an immense emptiness lay behind all the order, precision, and success. He could see the Dallas skyline glimmer from the penthouse on the 45th floor each night, but the lights never felt warm. He had everything except the sense of belonging. That morning, he didn't know his life was about to change. Margaret, his assistant of nearly 15 years, hurried toward him, handing over a thick folder. "The marketing strategy team's presentation, sir. Their new director just transferred from Miami. She made quite an impression at the board meeting." Samuel nodded, flipping through a few pages without much interest. But then his eyes stopped at a photograph in the corner. A face he didn't know, warm brown skin, wide dark eyes with laughter in them, soft curls brushing her shoulders. Her smile wasn't posed or practiced, it was genuinely kind. His finger lingered on the photo for a moment. "Lola Hart," he murmured. The name itself sounded musical. "That's right," Margaret said. "Recruited from New York. Only 32, but her drive and vision have everyone talking." She added with a half smile, "You might want to be careful, your comms team seems more smitten with her than with their own strategy." Samuel smiled faintly. He rarely cared about personal details. Everything was measured in efficiency, progress, and results in his world. Emotion, he believed, only derailed precision. Yet that morning, as he walked into the conference room on the 38th floor, something in the air felt different. The oval room was bathed in natural light from wide glass walls overlooking Interstate 35. The marketing team arranged their slides and laptops. At the head of the table, a woman tested the microphone, her voice calm and rhythmic like the sound of waves. "Is the sound clear? We can start on time." Samuel turned toward that voice. Lola Hart. She wore a cream pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse, sleeves neatly rolled. Nothing extravagant, yet confidence seemed to radiate from her, catching sunlight as she moved. When she looked up, their eyes met just for a few seconds, but long enough for time to slow. Samuel's heart skipped a beat, not with the thrill of youth, but with the astonishment of a man who had mastered control, suddenly feeling something beyond it. "Good morning, Mr. Preston," Lola said, her voice carrying a soft Caribbean undertone. "Good morning, Miss Hart," he replied, his tone low, even. The presentation began. Lola didn't just present, she told a story. She spoke of Texas real estate, not as a market but as people. Young families, newlyweds, immigrants chasing dreams. Her slides pulsed with color and life. Each number carried a human face. Samuel, who had sat through thousands of presentations, found himself wanting to listen. He felt a chill when she introduced the idea of human architecture building houses and spaces that heal. The phrase touched something profound and unnamed inside him. "We don't just sell walls and steel," Lola said softly. "We sell the belief that everyone deserves a place to breathe." And then she closed. "That, sir, could make Preston Developments different forever." Silence filled the room for a few seconds before applause erupted. Samuel didn't clap. He just watched her, as if trying to memorize that moment. When everyone began to leave, he said quietly to Margaret, "Have Miss Hart stay." When the door closed, only sunlight and silence remained. Lola turned to him, her smile still warm. "Did you have any feedback on the presentation, sir?" After a pause, Samuel said, "No, I just wanted to ask. Why marketing for construction? Someone with your ability could easily be on Madison Avenue or Silicon Valley." Lola tilted her head thoughtfully. Because I like things I can touch. I want to see the results of what I do, not just through a screen. I believe every building has a soul. People live in it, love in it, heal in it. Her answer made Samuel smile. He didn't know what to say. Somehow, she had touched a hidden chord he hadn't realized existed. He glanced toward the window, where sunlight glared off the glass. "Do you know you made my heart skip a beat today?" he said lightly, half joking, half true. Lola laughed, a sound unguarded and genuine. "I hope it was in a good rhythm, Mr. Preston." He smiled. "Just call me Samuel." That noon, as Lola left the tower, Samuel stood by the window, watching the streams of cars shimmer like silver under the Sunday. He didn't understand why. Among countless people he had known, partners, rivals, lovers, this woman made him feel alive. He pulled out his phone and typed, "Thank you for this morning's presentation, Preston," then deleted it. I typed again, "I'm impressed by how you see the world." Deleted that too. In the end, he sent nothing. He only saved her number. That afternoon, light rain brushed against the glass walls, scattering reflections of office lights into 1,000 tiny shards. Samuel looked down at the artificial lake below, where light and steel met. A sudden thought flashed across his mind. Maybe, this time, destiny isn't about what we build, but who we meet. And he smiled, quietly. For the first time in years, Samuel Preston looked forward to tomorrow. The next morning, Dallas sparkled after a night of rain. Water streaks lingered on the asphalt, mirroring the rising glass towers. The city was always awake early, its rhythm matching Samuel's own. Steady, strong, relentless. But as he stood by the window on the 45th floor, he felt something new, warmth in his chest. The bitterness of his black coffee filled his mouth, and unbidden, he thought of her voice. That mix of Miami, Caribbean, and a hint of London, so unlike anything he'd ever heard in his world of contracts and concrete. "Margaret," he said as she entered. "The Velvet Bean, it's on Main and a card, right?" "Yes, sir. The marketing team often works there in the mornings. Shall I order coffee from them?" "No need. I'll go myself." Margaret raised an eyebrow but said nothing. In 15 years, she had never seen him step out mid-morning unless to meet a governor or an investor. Samuel buttoned his coat, moving unhurriedly, and left the office. Dallas looked different that morning. No longer cold steel but warm air filled with the smell of coffee, baked bread, and soft jazz. He drove slower than usual, through sunlit streets. The Velvet Bean appeared ahead, a vintage cafe with wine-red wooden doors, a brass sign gleaming under the sun, and windows that caught the morning light. He stepped inside. The scent of espresso and vanilla wrapped around him. Dallas had hundreds of cafes, but the Velvet Bean had a soul where people came to sit quietly and listen to time breathe. And there she was. Lola sat in the far corner by the window, hair loose in soft curls, a green olive blouse catching the light, one hand on her laptop, the other around a cappuccino cup. Sunlight traced a golden edge around her face. Samuel's pulse quickened, a feeling he thought long gone. He approached the counter, pretending to be calm. "One Americano to go," he said evenly. But his gaze lingered on her. She was lost in thought, lips slightly pursed, a stray curl falling over her cheek that she brushed back with an absent hand. The small gesture held him still. When the barista called Mr. Preston, he turned, took the cup, and bumped into her. Clink. Coffee splashed, the lid popped off, and dark liquid stained his grey suit. The room froze. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Lola gasped, grabbing napkins, dabbing at his jacket, eyes wide and flustered. Samuel looked down, then at her, and suddenly laughed. The sound made her pause. She'd heard he was cold as steel, but that gentle, warm, genuine smile raced her heart. "It's all right," he said, voice low. "I think this jacket needed some character anyway." She laughed, embarrassed but relieved. "I swear this was an accident. First time I've ever spilled coffee on my boss." "So you know I'm your boss," Samuel teased lightly. She smiled, lips pressed together. "I had a feeling." They sat down together, at first for her to apologize and him to reassure, but soon the conversation flowed, effortless, as if they had known each other for years. Lola told him about her childhood in Miami, her Puerto Rican mother who played salsa while cooking, the humid afternoons by the ocean. Samuel spoke of his father, a carpenter from Austin, rough hands, gentle heart. "My father used to say," Samuel said quietly, "when you build something with your hands, you leave a piece of your soul in it. Maybe that's why I chose construction." Lola looked at him, eyes bright. "And maybe that's why your buildings feel alive." A tender silence settled. Outside, sunlight glimmered on the street, reflected in their coffee cups. They talked of little things, movies, music, food. She loved old jazz. He once played piano. Everything felt easy, natural, as if resuming a conversation paused lifetimes ago. As noon neared, Lola smiled. "I should head back before Margaret reports. I'm apologizing in the wrong place." Samuel chuckled, standing. "This coffee will be a memorable one. I'll keep the stain as a souvenir. If you really do, I'll buy you a new jacket," she teased. "No need," he said softly. "It reminds me of something real." Before she left, he called out, "Lola." She turned, sunlight brushing her hair. "If you plan on spilling coffee again tomorrow, I'll be at this table." She laughed, the sound bright. "I'll try not to, but who knows?" When she was gone, Samuel sat longer, staring at the drying stain on his jacket. He felt something he couldn't name, a warmth mixed with unease, a feeling he thought he'd lost forever. Back at the office that afternoon, the stain still there. Margaret frowned. "You're not changing. The board meeting's at 3. "No need," he said. "I like it." Margaret studied him quietly. She had seen Samuel through triumphs and heartbreaks, but never quite this. Alive. That night, Dallas glowed in neon. Samuel returned to his penthouse, turning on only half the lights. He hated brightness. The room was cool, still. He poured a red wine and watched the city through the window. Amid the distant lights, he saw her face again, the warmth in her eyes, the music in her laugh. He had known relationships before, but they were brief, transactional. With Lola, there was no plan, no logic, only presence. He sipped his wine, the bitterness blooming on his tongue, and for the first time in years, wondered, if I stopped for a moment, would someone be waiting there? When he stepped off the elevator on the 38th floor the next morning, a bouquet of orange tulips lay outside the conference room. The card read, "To the man attacked by coffee, may your day be less bland. L." Samuel read the note repeatedly, a quiet smile touching his lips. He placed it in his desk drawer, beside a pen engraved with Preston, a gift from his father. From that day on, Samuel's mornings were no longer just coffee and numbers. He began finding reasons to pass by the marketing floor, to linger a little too long, or to accidentally stop by the Velvet Bean at the hour she was there. He knew he was changing, even if only slightly. Under the golden Texas sun, in a city of steel and ambition, something soft was finding its way into his life, something no blueprint, no deal, no success could replace. It was Lola Hart. Dallas shifted gently into early December. The red oaks along the streets began to shed their leaves, and the wind carried traces of mint and pine. The city was easing into the holiday season. Christmas lights started to wrap around the tall buildings, and in the air lingered something shimmering, like expectation or hope. For Samuel Preston, it was also the time he realized one thing. He had started waiting for someone every day. Since that coffee accident, he and Lola have run into each other more than a few times in the elevator, the hallway, and sometimes during internal meetings. But by chance was a phrase they both understood. Nothing about it was truly accidental. One morning, he found her struggling with the espresso machine at the office coffee bar. He walked up, set his cup down, and said in his calm but teasing tone, "Careful, I still have PTSD from the last coffee incident." Lola looked up, smiling widely, mischief sparkling in her eyes. "And yet you're brave enough to approach the machine again." "Only when you're operating it," he said, with a small, quiet smile. She laughed, shaking her head. "You really have a way of saying things that make people want to believe you and doubt you simultaneously." "And you," he replied, "have a way of making people forget how long they've lived in silence." That line made the air still for a beat. Lola glanced sideways, her cheeks slightly flushed, then handed him the cup. "Careful," she said. I'd rather not be sued again for making the CEO addicted. Samuel chuckled softly, the kind of laugh that made passing employees turn their heads. He rarely laughed in the office. But ever since she arrived, his rules seemed to be quietly changing. That evening, Samuel stayed late. The city glittered under the night sky like an inverted constellation. At a red light, his phone buzzed with a message. "Thanks for helping me with the files this afternoon. I owe you a cappuccino, but I'll make it right now. L." He smiled faintly and typed back, "I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself, but instead of coffee, how about dinner?" It took her 10 minutes to reply. "If that's an invitation from my boss, I should call my lawyer, but if it's from a friend, I'll say yes." He answered, "From a friend who still has a coffee stain on his jacket." She sent back a laughing emoji, then another. "Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. You pick the place." Samuel stared at the screen, feeling something stir in his chest, not the jittery excitement of youth, but the deep, steady awareness of a man who had known enough loneliness to recognize something worth holding on to. He chose La Fiora, an Italian restaurant in Highland Park Village, where candlelight lights flickered over soft jazz and the scent of wine lingered. He had been there countless times with clients, but never had it looked beautiful until he pictured her sitting across the table. The next night, Dallas was cold, with a fine mist of rain tracing lines down the car windows. Samuel arrived 10 minutes early, seated by the window where he could see the bare trees outside. He took off his coat, adjusted his cuffs, and felt nervous for the first time in years. When the door opened, she stepped in. Lola wore a wine-colored dress, her hair loose, her lips tinted a deep rose. The light caught her just right, elegant, yet effortlessly warm. The waiter guided her to his table. "Sorry, I'm late," she said, voice soft. "Dallas traffic is unforgiving." "That's all right," Samuel replied, pulling her chair. "I never thought I'd actually enjoy waiting." She looked at him, surprised, then smiled. "Are you trying to throw me off guard?" "No," he said, "just being honest." Dinner began with easy conversation work, music, memories of their younger days. Samuel spoke of his college years in Houston, of the first small house he built for his father. Lola talked about London, where she did her graduate studies, and how that city taught her the value of silence. When the waiter poured the red wine, she asked, "Do you ever get tired of always being on top?" Samuel thought for a moment. "Of course, but I don't know another way to survive. I grew up having to fight for every small thing. And you think that's the only way?" "Until I met you," he said, eyes fixed on his glass. "The music from the small speakers drifted gently, the nearness of you." Lola lowered her gaze, swirling the wine, a smile tugging at her lips. "Do you always say things like that at dinner?" "No," he answered. "Only when I'm afraid I won't get a second chance to." Their eyes met. Silence stretched warm, fragile, unspoken. Then Lola smiled, soft as breath. "Maybe you will." They ate slowly, talking about everything: films, architecture, even silly things like her hatred of white chocolate and his inability to handle spice. When dessert arrived, she said, eyes glimmering in the candlelight, "I don't think I've ever laughed this much at a work dinner." "Because this isn't a work dinner, then what is it?" "It's dinner with the woman I've wanted to see again since the day she walked into that conference room." Lola leaned back, studying him, her eyes searching his face. Then she whispered, "Samuel Preston, you're a dangerous man." "Why's that?" "Because you make everything serious sound like a confession." He smiled. "Maybe sometimes it is." She smiled too slowly, deeply. When they left the restaurant, rain still misted the air. He opened the car door for her. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and leaves. She slid into the seat, glancing at him. "Thanks for dinner. It was nicer than I expected." "And for me," he said, "harder to forget than I imagined." When they reached her apartment near Turtle Creek, she unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to him, her gaze soft yet steady. "You know, I once promised myself I'd never get involved with someone from work. And are you keeping that promise?" She smiled faintly. "I'm trying." He nodded. Trying is the first step toward change. She looked at him a moment longer. The wind blew a few strands of hair across her face. He almost reached out to tuck them back, but stopped, just short. The distance between them was only inches, enough for him to feel her breath warm and close. "Good night, Samuel," she whispered. "Good night, Lola." She stepped out into the drizzle and hurried toward the door. He watched until she disappeared inside. Samuel stayed in the car for a while, his hands still on the wheel, heart beating in a rhythm he no longer recognized. He'd never been easily moved, but something about her, her honesty, freedom, and light, made him feel alive again. That night, back at his penthouse, he checked his phone and found a message. "Just made the perfect cappuccino. You're not here to taste it, so I owe you another." He replied, "Then I'll keep giving you chances to make it up to me." She sent back a smiling face and a small heart. Samuel set the phone down and leaned back. Outside, rain still fell, and the city buzzed, but inside him was a rare calm. He knew he was walking a path that could upend everything: his reputation, principles, and control. Yet he wasn't afraid, maybe because, for the first time, he wasn't steering, he was following his heart. And a woman smiled over her cup of coffee somewhere in the vast city, feeling the same. Samuel's life had quietly shifted 3 weeks after that evening at La Fiora. He was still the man of meetings, plans, and multi-million-dollar contracts. But between the calls and the emails, there were moments he waited for a short text from Lola, a cappuccino waiting on his desk, or the sound of laughter rising from the marketing floor below. She had become the quiet soundtrack to a film once filled only with the noise of steel. One Friday afternoon, stepping out of a meeting, he saw her in the lobby of the 38th floor, holding stacks of folders. "Escaping your inbox?" he asked. Lola turned, smiling. "No, just waiting for the elevator, but I think it's taking a weekend off." Samuel pressed the button for his private elevator. "Would you like a ride with the CEO?" She tilted her head, eyes playful. "You should know, I'm practicing professional boundaries. Then think of this as a test, and if I fail, then I'll consider myself lucky." Lola laughed, her laughter filling the quiet space. The elevator doors closed, and in that silence, Samuel wished the short ride would last longer. When they reached the ground floor, she asked, "Driving home alone?" "Unless you have a better idea, I was thinking. It's too nice out to go straight home. Then why not stop somewhere?" She hesitated, then nodded. "There's a place I go on weekends. Think you can leave your world of glass and steel for an afternoon? Lead the way." The Tesla glided down the highway, turning onto more minor roads north of Dallas. The city faded into rows of trees and small sunlit lakes. Lola pointed ahead, White Rock Lake. "I come here when I need to breathe." They parked by the water. The breeze was cool, the lake shimmering like liquid silver. Runners, cyclists, and children with kites. A simple scene unlike any Samuel had ever noticed. "Do you ever just stop?" Lola asked. "Look at the water and think of nothing?" "Not often," he admitted. "I'm afraid I'll forget how to start again." "Maybe you need to forget once." She sat on a wooden bench, slipped off her heels, and let her bare feet touch the grass. Samuel joined her, surprised by how right it felt to do something unplanned. For a while, they sat quietly, listening to the wind and the rustling leaves. "When I was little," Lola said, "my mother told me if you want to know what you need, look at the water. It never pretends, never resists. It just flows where it's meant to go. And you think people should be the same?" "Maybe. I think love should." Samuel turned to her. "You think love isn't something to fight?" "No. I think it's something you shouldn't plan." The words pierced through him sharp, simple, true. For a man who lived by strategy, they felt like a gentle blow to his armor. But he didn't resist. "Are you planning to stay away from me?" he asked quietly. "Maybe I should. And maybe I'm failing." They both laughed. The sunset brushed the lake in gold. Samuel reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek, the gesture so natural it startled him. She didn't move away, just looked at him, eyes tender and unsure. "You know," she said softly, "you're not what I imagined." "What did you imagine?" "Cold, rational, a man made of numbers. And now? Now I think you listen more than you realize." He smiled. "Maybe I just listened to you." The wind rippled across the water, and for a moment, time stood still, just the two of them, the lake and the quiet. After that day, they met more often, morning coffee, quick lunches, long evenings neither wanted to end. Once, Lola invited Samuel to her apartment for a real Caribbean dinner. The place was small and cozy, filled with the scent of lime, garlic, and sweet peppers. She wore a white shirt, her hair tied up, hands moving fast as she cooked, talking all the while. "Do you know the secret to coconut rice?" "No, but I'm ready to invest if you tell me. It's not money, it's patience. Low heat, constant stirring, or it burns." Samuel leaned against the counter, voice low. "Like love." She paused, glanced at him. "Do you turn everything into philosophy?" "Not everything," he said. "Just what I'm afraid to lose." She smiled, but her heart was beating fast. Dinner was simple and perfect: coconut rice, grilled fish, roasted vegetables with lime. Jazz played softly. Samuel ate slowly, watching her. "You're eating like you're memorizing the recipe." "No, I'm memorizing the feeling." She fell quiet, and for a moment, everything else, music, rain beyond the window, seemed to fade. Later, they sat on the sofa, warm light around them. Lola swirled her glass of wine and asked, "Do you ever think about walking away from it all, just living simply?" "No," he said. "I'm afraid of silence, and I need it to survive." "Why?" "Because my world used to be too loud. London, New York people talk too much, move too fast, love too easily, but never stayed. When I returned to Dallas, I promised myself I'd only keep what truly matters." Samuel looked at her and saw himself reflected. Two people who had gone far to find their way home. "Maybe we're more alike than you think," he said. She smiled, setting her glass down. "Maybe." The space between them closed. Their eyes met, breath mingling 1 second, 2, and then she tilted her head, letting him kiss her. Their first kiss came like a breath, no drama, no rush, just the quiet acknowledgement of something long understood. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "Don't scare me, Samuel." He answered, voice rough, "I'm scared too." The days that followed brought real winter to Dallas. The air turned sharp and grey, but for them, everything felt brighter. They walked through Bishop Arts, shared pizza outdoors, and snapped photos on their phones. Lola took him to her favorite places: old bookstores, farmers markets, and a small theater in Oak Cliff. Samuel, who once guarded his time like treasure, now gladly spent whole afternoons just walking beside her. One cold afternoon, sitting in a park with hot cocoa, Lola watched children playing and asked, "Do you believe in fate?" "Not much." "I do." "What do you think it is?" "It's what makes two people bump into each other in a cafe and never drift apart again." He chuckled. "So that coffee was fate?" "You doubt it?" "No, I'm grateful for it." She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. The wind blew colder. He wrapped his scarf around her neck. She took his hand, small and warm in his. That was the moment Samuel realized he wasn't merely fond of her. He was in love. Deeply, entirely, beyond reason. In a world built on contracts, numbers, and steel, Lola Hart was the one who proved some things can't be measured. They sat together at an open-air symphony in downtown Dallas that Christmas Eve. When the violins began "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," he looked at her, eyes bright, cheeks flushed from the cold, and thought, if I could hold one moment forever, it would be this one. She turned, meeting his gaze. "What are you thinking?" "That I want this winter to last forever." "You know," she said, resting her head on his shoulder, "every winter passes. Then I'll learn to love even when it does." The music swelled. Snowflakes from the machines drifted down like gentle truth. Amid the lights, the crowd, the shimmer of the city, Samuel and Lola sat still, hands entwined, as everything else melted away. And in that Texas winter night, their love truly began. That winter in Dallas was colder than usual. The pale sky wore a thin veil of clouds, and though no real snow ever fell, the streets turned white with lights and artificial flurries blown from the festival machines scattered downtown. Laughter mingled with carols, and the air was sweet with cinnamon and gingerbread from street-side stalls. Samuel Preston stood by the tall glass window on the 45th floor of Preston Tower, looking down at the city shimmering beneath him. A stack of unopened files lay on his desk. His phone glowed with missed calls, but his mind was elsewhere. Lola. They had been together almost 8 months. 8 months that slipped by like wind, yet long enough for him to realize she had become both the first and last thought of his days. Their love wasn't loud. It lived in hurried breakfasts, short messages, and evenings spent reading together in comfortable silence. But within that silence, something more profound than words took root. Since meeting her, Samuel had changed slowly, almost imperceptibly. He smiled more, worked better, and grew gentler with the people around him. Even Margaret, the assistant who once treated him like a Swiss timepiece, noticed. "You're different, Sam," she said one morning, setting down his tea. "Different in a good way." He looked up, half smiling. "I hope so." "It's her, isn't it?" "Who?" "Miss Hart. She's made this office feel a little less like a corporation and a little more human." He didn't answer, only smiled. But his eyes said enough. By late December, Dallas was wrapped in holiday spirit. Shopping centers blared music. Towering Christmas trees filled the plazas. Lola was busy leading Preston Development's winter campaign, while Samuel quietly prepared something else. He wanted to propose, not with the grandeur of a wealthy man, but with the kind of truth that makes love feel certain, unquestioned. Samuel was never good with gestures, but spent weeks planning this one. With Margaret's help, he arranged a private company Christmas gala on the rooftop of Preston Tower, overlooking the entire city. He hired Lola's favorite jazz band and reserved a single table for two beneath a canopy of lights that looked like stars. And he had a gift waiting, a rose-gold ring with a modest diamond. Inside the band, engraved in fine script, "For the one who taught me how to stay." He had written the line one quiet night when Lola fell asleep on his shoulder, smiling faintly in her dreams. In that moment, he realized how much of his life had been about leaving, moving, building, conquering but never staying. She had taught him what it meant to stop running. Christmas Eve. The morning sun was soft over Dallas. Lola, in a beige coat and red scarf, came to the office early, hearing rumors about a secret party. "What's Mr. Preston planning?" she asked Margaret, noticing the lobby filled with wreaths, candles, and trees. Margaret only smiled. He didn't say, "Dear, but trust me, you'll want to look your best tonight." Lola laughed, suspecting nothing more than a company celebration. By dusk, the air turned crisp. Samuel picked her up as usual. "You look more serious than before a board meeting," she teased, "because tonight I'm presenting the most important project of my life." "Oh? Should I prepare the slides?" "No," he said with a faint grin. "Just listen." She laughed, unaware his heart was pounding hard enough to hear. When they reached Preston Tower, the city was a field of lights below them. Samuel led her to the private elevator and pressed the top floor. When the doors opened, Lola stopped breathing. The rooftop was aglow with soft gold light. Hundreds of candles lined a path toward a small table set for two, surrounded by evergreens and the quiet hum of jazz playing the Christmas song. "Samuel," she whispered, hand covering her mouth. "You did all this?" "Yes," he said gently. "For us." Her eyes shimmered, half in disbelief. "Why?" "Because I want tonight to be something you'll remember even when we're old." They sat down to steak, wine, and tiramisu, no audience. No speeches, just wind and music. "You know," Lola said, voice low, "I used to think I'd never fit with someone like you." "Someone like me?" "Rational, private, hard to read, and I'm all emotion and impulse. And you think that makes us opposites?" "No," she smiled. "Maybe that's why we understand each other." He looked at her, grey eyes bright under the lights. "You taught me that not everything needs control. You made me see that feeling isn't a weakness." Tears welled in her eyes. "And you made me believe reason can be kind." Samuel reached into his coat and placed a small box on the table. She froze, breath caught. "Lola Hart," he said, voice steady but soft. "I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. I knew how to build everything, houses, companies, legacies, but not a home. Then you came, and everything changed." He opened the box. The diamond caught the city light. "You taught me to stay, to love, to believe. So tonight, above this city we both built our lives in, I have to ask." He stood, dropped to one knee, his smile trembling. "Will you build the rest of your life with me?" She didn't speak right away. Tears slipped down her cheeks before words could form. Jazz drifted faintly behind them, the air rich with cinnamon and artificial snow. Finally, she nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, I will." Applause echoed softly from the shadows, Margaret wiping her eyes, the band smiling behind the glass. Samuel slipped the ring on her finger and rose, drawing her close. "I can't promise it'll always be easy," he murmured, "but I promise I'll never walk away, and I'll promise to remind you when you forget how to stay." They kissed under the Dallas sky, snow swirling like blessings. That night, Dallas witnessed two souls, one who feared emotion, one who feared losing faith, find the only thing money could never buy: love. After the proposal, they drove beyond the city lights. Samuel stopped near the lake where they'd once sat together. The moon shimmered across the still water. Lola looked out, fingers tracing the new ring. "Do you know my first thought when you knelt?" "What?" "I hoped I wouldn't wake up, because it felt like a dream. Then believe this dream will last." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I believe. But promise me don't shut yourself away when things get hard." "I promise." "But you promise, too, don't walk out when I'm stubborn." "Fair deal," she said, half laughing. They sat quietly, breath mingling in the cold. "Do you believe in fate?" he asked. "I do," she said. "Fate makes two people find each other right when they think there's no one left to find. And you think this is that moment?" "I think we're just in time." He held her hand tighter. Across the lake, city lights shimmered like scattered stars. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Welcome home." The morning after, Christmas sunlight slipped through the penthouse curtains. The air still smelled of candle wax and orchids from the night before. Two half-empty wine glasses stood on the table, the ring box open between them, a quiet proof that last night had been real. Lola woke later than usual, turning toward the warmth beside her. Samuel slept soundly, hair tousled, one arm draped over her waist. She watched him for a long time, not the CEO behind glass walls, not the man everyone admired, but simply a man breathing, alive. She tried to slip out of bed without waking him, but his voice came low and rough. "Planning an escape?" "No," she whispered, smiling. "Just making coffee. But my fiancé seems to have a sixth sense, only when it comes to you." He pulled her back, burying his face in her hair. "I still can't believe last night happened." "Neither can I," she said, resting her hand over his heart. "But the ring says otherwise." They lay there in silence, morning wind brushing the windows. Samuel spoke suddenly. "Want to go somewhere? Far away? No emails, no schedules. You just survived the meeting of your life and now you want to plan another," she teased. "That meeting was the best decision I ever made." He sat up, eyes bright. "I'm thinking Napa Valley. A week, wine, vineyards, and no one who knows us." She laughed softly. "Give me a day to pack. But that does sound tempting, so that's a yes." "Not quite. I'll book the flight, and you can try to find a better reason not to go." "You know I won't." Her laughter filled the room like sunlight. They flew to California 2 days later with light luggage and open hearts. The plane landed in Sonoma as evening painted the hills in amber. The air smelled of soil, grapes, and quiet. Samuel drove them to a small oak cabin tucked in Napa Valley, a former winery turned hideaway. "You picked this?" Lola asked as they stepped out. "Yeah. The owner said couples come here to disappear from the world." "Couples?" She tilted her head. "I figured we qualify." He said it lightly, but something in him shifted. No boardrooms, no deadlines, only two people. A wooden house, and silence so deep he could hear his heartbeat. That night, they dined on the porch, the air filled with grape scent and smoke from the fireplace. Lola poured wine, candlelight dancing in her eyes. "I've always wanted to come here," she said. "My father told me Napa was where he and my mother honeymooned. He said the wine makes people honest." "Then we'd better be careful," Samuel said, lifting his glass. "I've got a lot of truth waiting to spill. Such as, that I love you more than I thought I could, and that if you ever disappeared, I wouldn't know how to start again." She smiled. "You don't need wine for that." "No, but wine helps me say it out loud." The breeze swept her hair, and Samuel felt an unfamiliar peace. He realized happiness wasn't for people with less ambition but for those who finally stopped measuring. Days passed gently. Bike rides through the hills, wine tastings in old cellars, pizza at a roadside cafe. Lola laughed often, and Samuel captured it all with the vintage camera he always carried. One afternoon, they visited a small family vineyard run by an elderly Italian couple. The owner, Giorgio, greeted them warmly. "Texans?" he said. "Texans always choose bold red wine strong, like their hearts. And their love," Lola added. The older man chuckled. "Try this one, it's strong, but the aftertaste is sweet. Like a woman, a man never forgets." Samuel raised his glass toward her. "Hear that? I've found our wine." Lola's eyes sparkled. "Planning to drink it forever? Until you tell me to stop." Giorgio smiled, nodding toward his wife, tending vines in the distance. "She once told me true love isn't in perfect days, but in choosing to stay through the worst ones." Samuel fell quiet. The words sank deep. On their last morning in Napa, fog hugged the hills. Lola walked beside him, her hand in his, dew glinting in her hair like crystal. "I never thought I'd meet someone who'd make me want to stay still," she said. "I used to move all the time, London, New York, Miami. I was afraid of roots, afraid of loss." "So was I," he said. "I hid behind work, behind everything I built. I thought I wouldn't feel the emptiness if I built high enough. I was wrong." She squeezed his hand. "We found what we were missing in each other, and losing it," he said quietly, "would break me." She stopped, studying him. There was something in his gaze, a shadow of fear, unnamed but real. "Samuel," she whispered, "sometimes I think about the future, and I'm scared that this happiness is fragile. Like if I drop it, it'll shatter." "I'm scared too," he said. "But fear won't make it last, it'll only steal the moments we have." She nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. The morning birds filled the silence. By the time they returned to Dallas, winter was fading. Work waited, schedules filled again, but they carried a slower rhythm from Napa. Mornings, Samuel drove her to work. Evenings, they cooked, read, or sat by the window, watching the city lights. One February night, while Lola reviewed ad layouts, Samuel read nearby. Suddenly, she paused, pressing her temples. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah, just dizzy. Too much today. You should rest." "Don't start, Mr. Preston. I need sleep." He let it go, but worry lingered. Since the engagement, she'd been tiring easily, her hands sometimes trembling, but she always blamed work. In March, they began wedding preparations. Lola chose the Dallas Arboretum, lush, open, filled with light. "I don't want a lavish ceremony," she said. "Just sunlight, friends, and jazz." "Jazz," he smiled. "I can promise." "Can you promise a lifetime, too?" "I already did on the 45th floor, remember?" She laughed, though something wistful flickered in her eyes. During their final fitting, Samuel waited, flipping absently through a magazine. When Lola stepped out, time seemed to stop. The simple white dress traced her figure, making her look fragile and strong. Light rippled across the fabric, and he forgot to breathe for a second. "What do you think?" she asked, shyly. "I think everyone else will forget there are other brides." "You shouldn't say that, it'll make the designer proud." "I don't care," he said, "because I'm not looking at the dress." She smiled, touching his chest. "I still can't believe I'm marrying a man like you." "What kind of man?" "The one who used to think love was a waste of time." "I did," he said softly, "until you made every minute worth living." They married on a mild April morning. Flowers lined the aisle, jazz played softly, and laughter filled the garden. Samuel stood beneath the floral arch, hands trembling as Lola walked toward him, carrying all the light of the day. When they exchanged rings, he whispered, "Thank you for not letting me live half a life." She answered, voice trembling, "Thank you for teaching me how to stay." Their kiss drew applause and music, and in that instant, all fear dissolved. That night, they held a small celebration in the penthouse. No guests left, just the two, quiet music, and the city glittering outside. Samuel wrapped his arms around her from behind, murmuring, "I feel like everything's only beginning." "And look how far we've come," she said. She turned, meeting his gaze. "I love you, Sam. I love you too, Lola. More than Dallas, more than the sky itself." They danced slowly, no music needed. The city lights shimmered across the glass, casting rivers of gold around them. A chill wind brushed the windows, a whisper of the season's end. Happiness had never looked so beautiful. Yet somewhere deep inside Samuel, a faint unease stirred. The kind that comes from knowing every perfect story hides a turn in the road. Later that night, when Lola slept, Samuel sat up and stared at the city. An email from Houston blinked on his laptop, the project he'd postponed for months. He hesitated, then closed the lid. Not now, he thought. She's here, that's all that matters. But beyond the glow of Dallas, the future was quietly shifting, and as they slept in each other's arms, life, like every building Samuel had ever constructed, was already testing the strength of the foundation they had built. That May, Dallas bloomed like a painting, streets lined with flowers, skies of polished blue, sunlight spilling across its endless boulevards. On the top floor of Preston Tower, Samuel and Lola's penthouse felt like a world apart. Time slowed there, soft and golden, far from the city that never stopped. On the kitchen counter sat 2 steaming cappuccinos, beside an open newspaper and a sprig of lavender that Lola had just placed in a small glass vase. Samuel stepped out of the shower, crisp white shirt, coffee in hand. She was arranging the flowers, morning light falling across her warm brown skin in a way that made him wish time could pause. "You're up early," he said. "We have that meeting this morning, remember?" She replied, smiling. "And someone here can't face the board without caffeine. I think I'll need more than caffeine to survive them. Then tonight, I'll make you dinner." He came up behind her, slipped his arms around her waist, and his chin rested on her shoulder. "I don't need dinner, just you." "You say that every morning?" "No, only the mornings when you're in the kitchen." She laughed and turned to kiss him. Coffee and lavender mingled in the air, an ordinary happiness he once thought he'd never hold. Their wedding had been a month ago, but it still felt like a honeymoon. Weekends were for wandering Dallas, long lunches at small cafes, open-air movies, or lying on the sofa with soft jazz filling the room. Lola played something new each night, always keeping the volume low, just enough to fill the silence between breaths. Samuel often pretended to read, but he listened to her hum along, watched her sway, and smiled without realizing it. One night, when "Fly Me to the Moon" came on, she danced toward him, hand extended. "Mr. Preston, may I have this dance?" He folded the paper and rose with mock formality. "Miss Hart, the honor is mine." Barefoot on the wooden floor, they swayed beneath the city lights. His hand rested on her back, their rhythm finding the music's slow pulse. "You know," he murmured, "I used to think marriage was a cage, and now I think it's like a song, sometimes offbeat. But if you listen long enough, it becomes a melody." She smiled, resting her head on his chest. "I love this melody." In early June, Samuel surprised her with a message. "Pack light. Bring summer dresses. Suva. M.A. Tomorrow." When the car stopped at Love Field Airport, she looked at him, eyebrows raised. "Where are we going?" "California," he said. "You'll love it." They landed in Santa Barbara. Blue ocean, salt air, sunlight warm as silk. He'd rented a small bungalow by the beach, palm trees swaying, white sand stretching to the horizon. "Trying to make me fall in love with you again," she teased as they walked barefoot on the sand. "I just want you to rest. You've been working too hard. So have you." "I'm used to being tired," he smiled. "You shouldn't be." They spent the day doing nothing, reading, napping, listening to the sea. At sunset, they swam together, laughing as waves broke around them. That night, Samuel grilled dinner outside. She watched him roll up his sleeves, sweat on his brow, looking awkward and perfect. "You sure you know what you're doing?" "I can build skyscrapers. How hard can a steak be?" "Harder. Buildings don't burn this fast." They ate by the fire, the meat a little charred, laughing until they couldn't breathe. When the stars rose, he lit a small fire pit, and she leaned against him, watching the sparks lift into the night. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I never thought I could be this happy." "Me neither. I keep thinking this must be a dream." "If it is, Promise me you won't wake up." He took her hand. "I won't." Later that night, with the ocean whispering outside, Samuel woke and watched her sleep hair loose, face calm. He brushed his fingers over her cheek, still warm, still real. A part of him didn't quite believe it. Back in Dallas, life settled into a quiet rhythm. Lola led Preston Development's human architecture campaign, an idea born from her own words. Samuel pushed forward on sustainable housing, saying it was for their future. But sometimes, even on bright days, small cracks appear. As they prepared for work one morning, Lola stopped mid-step, gripping the counter. "You okay?" he asked. "Just tired," she said, forcing a smile. "Sit down. Please." "I'm fine, Sam. I don't like that word fine, and I don't like you worrying so much." They looked at each other, both smiling to hide a flicker of unease. Autumn came. Dallas turned gold. Their days stayed steady, shared breakfasts, long work hours, quiet evenings. Yet sometimes, when Samuel entered the living room, he'd find her sitting still, staring out the window. "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing. Just tired again." "You sure?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "Just hold me. That's all." He did. But beneath the calm, something in him trembled, the stillness that comes before a storm. In October, they celebrated 6 months of marriage. Samuel booked a table at La Fiora, the Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date. She arrived 10 minutes late, slightly breathless, cheeks flushed. "Sorry, traffic." "No problem. I just got here. You picked the same table." She glanced around, smiling. "I remember that night." "So do I. You spilled coffee on me. Are you going to remind me forever?" "For life." It was the start of everything. They toasted under soft candlelight. But when Lola lifted her glass, her hand trembled. A few drops spilled onto her dress. She frowned, trying to hide it, but Samuel noticed. "You all right?" "Just tired." "Don't worry. Later. At home." She went to bed early. Samuel sat beside her, watching her small hand rest against the sheets, wedding band glinting. He touched her forehead, warm, but not feverish. His heart beat too fast. He remembered Giorgio's words from Napa. True love doesn't live in perfect days, but in choosing to stay through the worst ones. He hadn't understood then. Now, he sensed those days were near. He kissed her hand and whispered, "I'm here, no matter what." She stirred, smiled faintly in her sleep, as if she'd heard. Mid-November brought an early chill. Leaves are scattered across the highways. Samuel sat at breakfast, paper open but unread. Lola hadn't come out yet, strange, since she was always up first. He went to the bedroom. Light filtered softly through the curtains. She was still in bed, curled up, her breathing heavy. "Lola, you okay?" She opened her eyes slowly. "Think I caught something. Just tired." He touched her forehead, hot. "You've got a fever." "I'll be fine, Sam. I need rest." The doctor came that morning, called it a mild flu, prescribed medicine, and told her to stay in bed. Samuel wanted to believe that, but unease coiled in his chest, something more profound than worry, a fear without a name. By afternoon, she was up again, wrapped in a blanket, smiling at him as he came home. "See? Still alive." He smiled back, voice quiet. "That's all I want to see every day." The fever passed, but the fatigue didn't. Days later, she began coughing, dizzy spells returning. Samuel urged her to rest. She refused. "I can't stop now. The campaign's about to launch. You can let someone else finish it." "You don't understand. I need to see it through." He watched her, determined, exhausted, still luminous. One evening, during dinner, she pushed her plate away. "Not hungry. Medication kills my appetite. Tomorrow I'm taking you for a full checkup." "Sam, you're overreacting." "I'd rather overreact than regret." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. Tomorrow." Dallas Memorial Hospital gleamed white and cold. Samuel held her hand that morning as they entered the testing room, his heart pounding harder than in any billion-dollar negotiation. He waited for hours. When the door opened, Dr. Marcus Bennett stepped out, face grave. "Mr. Preston, some of her results are concerning. We'll need to run more tests." What do you mean? Concerning. Her immune system is behaving abnormally. It could be autoimmune, we won't know until further analysis. The word autoimmune echoed like metal in his mind. Through the window, he saw her smiling faintly on the bed, sunlight fading behind her. The following weeks turned grey. Lola pretended things were every day, still working from home, still teasing him when he fussed. But at night, when she thought he slept, he heard her coughing softly, sighing into the dark. One night, he woke to find her sitting by the window, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Can't sleep. She shook her head. Just scared. He sat beside her, wrapping her in his arms. I'm here. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. But sometimes I'm afraid if one day I'm gone, you'll forget how to love. He froze. Don't say that. I don't mean it that way. Just promise me if I disappear, you'll keep living. There's no if, he said. We'll be okay. She smiled faintly. You talk like you can build the future. I will, if I have to. It was both a vow and a plea. 2 weeks later, the results came. Dr. Bennett's voice was calm but heavy. She has a rare autoimmune disorder. Her body's attacking its own nervous system. There's no cure yet, but we can manage it with long-term treatment. Samuel didn't move. Lola sat silent. The world split in two, the normal one, filled with hums and light, and the other, where sound ceased to exist. The key, the doctor added softly, is her mental strength. Stress will worsen the condition. She needs rest and peace. Lola nodded. Samuel said nothing. When they left, rain misted the air. She looked up at the grey sky and whispered, I guess this is where you really learn how to stay. He squeezed her hand. I never planned to leave. The penthouse became a ward of quiet strength. Samuel hired a nurse, installed equipment, and learned how to mix medication, track dosage, and steady her when she lost balance. Days, he worked. Nights, he was by her side. Funny, she said one evening, voice weak but teasing. I thought I was strong. Now I'm scared every morning I wake up. So am I, he admitted. For me? For not being able to control this. She smiled faintly. You don't have to control it. Just love me. I'll love you more than any plan I ever made. December came. Dallas glittered outside, but inside, time slowed to a fragile rhythm. The medicine dulled her strength. Her hair thinned. Her skin grew pale. Samuel hid his fear behind routine answering emails beside her bed, reading aloud when she couldn't. But every cough stopped his hands mid-air. One night, she woke to find him asleep in the chair, head on his arm, laptop still glowing. She stroked his hair, tears slipping quietly, not from pain, but from love. The next morning, she scolded him gently. You can't care for me if you fall apart. I'm fine. You're a terribly liar. He smiled tiredly. If I fall apart, I'll still choose to fall for you. You're crazy. Maybe. She cupped his face. Don't lose yourself taking care of me. I want to see you smile even if I can't. That Christmas, Samuel brought home a real tree, wrapped it in lights, and hung ornaments himself. Lola watched from the chair, blanket over her legs. Do you do this every year? She asked softly. No, never. But this year's different. Because of me? Because I finally have a reason. She laughed, breath thin. Then I've done my job well. When the last light clicked on, the room glowed golden. Lola's eyes lit with childlike joy. It's beautiful, Sam. Not as beautiful as you. She tried to answer, but her throat caught. He knelt beside her, holding her hand. You'll get better. We'll get through this. Don't promise, she whispered. Just stay. I am. They sat in silence. Church bells faint in the distance. Snow machines dusted the streets below. Samuel looked at her and said quietly, I used to think I built the strongest structures in the world. But now I know the thing I fear collapsing most isn't made of steel. It's you. Lola smiled weakly, eyes shimmering. And I know if I fall, you'll rebuild. Her words pierced him, painful, but true. Outside, Dallas blazed with winter light. Inside, they held each other fragile, steadfast, two souls clinging to warmth in a beautiful and unbearably delicate season. January in Dallas was frigid. The sky had turned a muted grey, like frosted glass, and the wind swept through the wide streets as if the city held its breath. Samuel Preston sat silently beside the bed in the penthouse on the 45th floor, his face caught in the pale window light, unshaven, hollow-eyed, and worn thin by nights without sleep. Lola lay there, her face more delicate now, thinner than before, yet still carrying that softness that tightened his heart each time he looked at her. She slept lightly, her breathing shallow, her small hand resting over the blanket, the wedding ring still shining faintly on her finger. "Doctor," Bennett had said the illness was advancing faster than expected. Her nervous system was deteriorating. The tremors were worse. Her short-term memory was slipping. Some mornings, she forgot she'd eaten or what day it was. Sometimes, she forgot what they'd just talked about. Samuel had never known fear like this. He'd lost deals, been betrayed, gone bankrupt at 26, even stood on construction sites in storms. But nothing had ever made him feel so helpless. With Lola, everything he had ever trusted, logic, control, planning, meant nothing. One morning, she stirred awake, her eyes dazed. "Sam, I'm here," he said, taking her hand. "Have you been here all night?" "Yes." "You didn't sleep?" "I didn't want to. You should rest. I need you more." She smiled faintly. "You're impossible. I learned from you." Her eyes fluttered closed momentarily. Then she whispered, "Do you remember the first time I spilled coffee on your shirt?" "I do. I think about that smell sometimes. Coffee. It makes me feel safe." He squeezed her hand. "You're going to get better, I promise." "Don't promise that, Sam. Just promise you'll live, no matter what." He turned away, his eyes stinging. He couldn't say yes, because he knew it wasn't true. From that day, he began searching, not for work, for a miracle. He read medical journals, called hospitals in Boston, New York, and Switzerland. He hired a private research team and contacted every neurologist whose name he could find. Margaret found him one evening surrounded by papers, red eyes, and a hoarse voice. "Sam, you can't keep working 20 hours a day." "I'm not working. I'm saving her." "You can't save someone by destroying yourself. So what do I do, Margaret? Watch her fade away in my arms?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Maybe what she needs isn't a miracle. Maybe it's you." He didn't respond. He knew she was right, but the voice inside him was louder, the voice of a man who refused to lose. Lola was hospitalized in early February. The fever had returned, stronger this time. When Dr. Bennett said she needed constant monitoring, Samuel moved in. Room 1207 at Dallas Memorial became his whole world, the steady beep of machines, the sterile scent of disinfectant, and the endless white light. He brought small pieces of her world into that room, lavender, in a vase, a little music player, the photo they took in Napa. She smiled faintly. "Are you turning the hospital into our home? If I have to, then hang a nameplate outside the door. I'll write, 'Home, where the heart stays.'" She laughed, voice raspy. "You really are the best architect I know." The days moved slowly. Some mornings she was clear, talking and smiling. Others, she drifted asking, "What day is it?" or "Have you eaten, Sam?" when he'd just shared breakfast with her. Each time, he answered gently, but he would press his palms to the wall in the hallway, eyes closed, breathing through the ache. Margaret visited often, bringing food she knew he wouldn't eat. She'd seen him handle crises that would crush most men, but never like this. "Sam," she said softly, "sometimes love means letting go, not of the person, of the fear." He shook his head. "If I let go of fear, I'll let go of her." One night, he dozed off in the chair. When he woke, she was awake, her eyes bright with an odd stillness. "Sam," she whispered, "I'm here. Do you believe in God?" He hesitated. "I don't know. I've never thought about it." "I do," she said, "but not as someone far away. I think he lives in the ones who don't give up." "Then I believe," he said quietly, "because I'll never give up on you." "I know." She lifted a trembling hand to his cheek, cold, fragile, yet it burned through him. "If someday I forget everything, remind me," she murmured. "Remind me that I was loved." He nodded, voice breaking. "I won't let you forget. By early March, She had grown weaker. Dr. Bennett suggested an intensive treatment plan, one that might keep her alive, but would almost surely strip away what strength she had left. Samuel stood outside the room, staring through the glass. She lay still, peaceful, and he felt his chest tighten as if the air had turned solid. Margaret placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can't control this, Sam. I've built towers that can stand hurricanes," he whispered, "and I can't keep the one thing I love from falling." "No one can keep love forever," she said, "but you can make the time she has beautiful." He nodded faintly, a man who had lost, but still chose to fight. One rainy afternoon, he brought her a bouquet of orange tulips, her favorite. "You remembered," she said, smiling weakly. "How could I forget? You gave me the first one, because you looked so serious. I thought you needed some color. Now I have all of you." She chuckled. "If there's another life, I want to meet you before I ever learn fear. Then I'll teach you not to be afraid. You already have." She closed her eyes, and he held her hand, feeling every pulse, every breath. That night, he stayed. He told the nurse to rest. Alone, in the hush of monitors and soft light, he took a sheet of paper and wrote, "Lola, you've always hated promises, but I'll make one anyway that no matter what happens, I'll never let this world lose the light you gave me. I'll live, not for me, but for what you left in me. I love you, Sam." He folded the letter and slipped it inside her favorite book. When he looked up, she was awake, watching him. "What are you writing?" "Just something foolish." "For who?" "You. But you can't read it yet. I like that secret." She smiled, her voice almost gone. "Will you sing for me?" "I don't sing." "You do. I've heard you hum at home. Promise you won't laugh." "I can't laugh out loud anymore." He chuckled softly, then sang rough, quiet, trembling. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." She closed her eyes, smiling faintly. His voice wove with the steady rhythm of her heartbeat on the monitor. When he finished, she whispered, "Thank you for staying. I haven't gone anywhere." "I know. But thank you for never running." She drifted to sleep, and he sat watching her, peaceful, fragile, realizing that they still lived within the light they had built even as darkness knocked. 3 weeks passed. The hospital had become a world of white and echoing footsteps. Samuel sat by her side each day as though time depended on it. That morning, grey light filtered through the blinds. She slept quietly. The monitor beeped softly, a heartbeat in place of her own. He touched her hand gently. "I'm here," he murmured, even though she couldn't hear. When Dr. Bennett came to check her vitals, he sighed. "She's weaker, Sam. The medication isn't working as we hoped. Is there another option? We could try a stronger course. It may give her time, but she'll suffer more. I'll take any chance." The doctor looked at him, voice gentle. "Sometimes the best thing isn't fighting, it's giving peace." The words struck deep. Peace, beautiful, but it meant losing her. That afternoon, she woke. "Are you tired?" she asked. "No. I'm just learning patience. You always say that, because you keep teaching me." They sat in silence, watching the faint reflection of their faces in the window glass. "I miss the ocean," she said. "Santa Barbara?" "Yes. The salt in the air, the wind. I remember thinking, if I could keep one day forever, it would be that one. When you're better, we'll go back. You promise? I never lie to you." She looked at him, long and soft. "That's what I love most about you. You always believe your own promises." That night, the pain came harder. She trembled. Her breath broke in shallow waves. Samuel held her up, wiping sweat from her brow, guiding water to her lips. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. For making you bear this. I'm not bearing it. I'm living it. With you, everything still matters." Her eyes filled. "How can you say things like that without shaking? Because it's true. If I don't wake up tomorrow," she said softly, "don't be angry. Don't say that. Just remember I loved you with everything I had." He couldn't hold back the tears. "I don't know how to live without you." "You will," she whispered. "I believe you will." Night deepened. The city slept. The only light came from the monitor, pulsing faintly. Samuel held her hand until exhaustion blurred his eyes. The rhythm changed around 3 in the morning, a strange tone cutting through the stillness. He jolted awake. "Sam," she whispered, lips trembling. "I'm here." He gripped her hand. "Do you remember the song?" "What song?" "You Are My Sunshine." He smiled through tears. "I remember. Sing it. One more time." His voice cracked as he began. "You make me happy when skies are grey." Her eyes closed, a faint smile still there. Her breathing slowed, her hand still in his. "Please don't take my sunshine away." The line ended in silence, that long, steady note that no one ever wants to hear. He froze. The world went quiet. The monitor still showed a faint heartbeat, fading. He bent down, forehead against hers. "Don't go. Please, don't go." Her lips moved once more. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here." And she slept. Doctors rushed in, adjusting monitors, whispering orders. Samuel stood outside, numb. When Dr. Bennett emerged, he spoke gently. "She's stable, for now. But she's very weak, Sam." Samuel nodded. Through the glass, he saw her so still, so light, like a dream about to dissolve. "If you'd like," the doctor added, "we can arrange for her to go home. Some people want to be where they belong." Samuel looked out the window at the city still glowing as if nothing had changed. Then he said quietly, "Yes, she belongs at home." 2 days later, Lola came home. Samuel had turned their living room into a sanctuary, quiet, filled with soft light and the faint hum of medical machines. She smiled faintly. "Turning the house into a hospital?" "No," he said, "turning the hospital into a home." "You're good with words." "I'm just telling the truth." He placed a fresh vase of lavender beside her. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. "Smells like Napa. You said lavender makes you feel calm, and now you've brought calm to me." He took her hand. "Lola," he said softly, "if I could trade everything I have, the company, the money, all of it just to make you well again, I would. Without a second thought." "I know," she whispered, "but don't. I don't want you to lose yourself. Without you, I'm not myself." "You are, Sam, because I didn't love you for saving me. I loved you for loving me, even knowing you'd lose." Tears fell. She reached up and brushed them away. "Don't cry. I'm still here." "I know, but I'm scared." "So am I," she said. "But at least we're scared together." That night, rain swept across the city. Samuel sat beside her, listening to the sound on the glass. She slept, breathing steadily. He opened her small journal and wrote inside, "March 27. You're sleeping peacefully. The city still shines, and I'm still here. If there's such a thing as a miracle, I don't need it to save you, only to make this moment last a little longer. An hour, a minute, a second, just a little longer." He closed the book, setting it beside her pillow. Then he looked at her for a long time, her calm face, fading color, the trace of a smile still there. Darkness might knock at their door, but in that room, light still lived because he was there, and she was there, together, keeping their first promise. "You taught me how to stay." That April, as Dallas grew warm again, Samuel decided to take Lola away from the city. He didn't ask the doctor's permission. He said, "We're going to Florida. She needs the ocean." Dr. Bennett looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "If you believe it will help her, go. Just take the medicine with you." And so they went. The flight lasted just over 2 hours, landing in Key West beneath a golden sky. The Florida sunlight felt different from Texas, soft, salted, and warm enough to touch. The breeze carried the scent of the sea and the slow rhythm of waves, and for the first time in months, Samuel felt something inside his chest begin to loosen. Lola sat in her wheelchair, a white straw hat shading her face, eyes turned toward the horizon. The wind teased loose strands of her hair. "Do you hear it?" he asked. "The ocean?" "Yes," she smiled. "It sounds the same as I remember, but somehow different." "How so?" "It sounds like it's calling me home." They stayed in a small seaside cottage, with white walls and pale blue tiles, and a porch overlooking the water where sunsets spilled in ribbons of gold and rose. Their driver, a kind middle-aged man named Caleb Torres, carried the luggage inside. "The sea here has its own miracles," he said warmly. "Everyone who comes to Key West leaves a piece of sorrow on the shore." Samuel replied softly, I'm not sure I want to leave anything behind. Maybe I want to keep her. Caleb nodded. Sometimes holding on isn't about clinging. It's about letting things rest in your hands lightly. On the first day, they sat on the porch facing the sea. Samuel set her chair where she could see the horizon and placed the lavender vase from Dallas on the small table beside her. The scent mixed with salt air strange, familiar, healing. Lola closed her eyes. I used to think the ocean was the loudest sound in the world, but it's really the sound of silence. I've never thought of it that way. Because you've never been still long enough. Maybe not. She turned to him, smiling faintly. You're still now because of me? No, he said. Because of us. She chuckled, the sunlight catching her eyes like broken glass, fragile, radiant, alive. The next morning, she asked to go down to the beach. Samuel helped her, step by slow step, across the soft sand. The rising sun glazed the water with silver, and when the tide touched their feet, it was cold, alive, forgiving. Remember Napa? She asked. When I said if I could keep one day forever, I remember. Well, I think I just found the second one. He smiled. I'm glad. They stood there, wrapped in salt air and the sound of waves. Samuel held her close, feeling her shallow but steady breaths against his chest. If the world had stopped then, he thought, he would have been content. That afternoon, a local nurse stopped by. While Samuel talked with her, Lola sat on the porch, painting. She painted the sea, the clouds, and the little house they stayed in. I didn't know you still painted, he said when he returned. Neither did I. My hands just wanted to do something. Can I see? Not yet. When it's done. He sat beside her, watching as she guided the brush with both hands, her right trembling but determined. A few tears slid silently down his face before he realized it. Without looking up, she said softly, Don't be sad, Sam. I'm not painting this to remember the view. I'm painting it to keep you in it. That night, the wind rose. Samuel tucked the blanket around her and sat by the bed as waves murmured beyond the open window. Do you miss Dallas? She asked. A little, but I like it here more. Why? Because I get to see you smile. You always say things people can't forget. I don't want to be forgotten. She looked at him, eyes calm and deep. No one could ever forget someone who loves like you, Sam. Over the next few days, Lola seemed stronger. She ate a little and smiled often. Samuel didn't call it recovery. He was too afraid of hope, but every smile felt like a minor miracle. They watched the sunrise in silence, read together in the afternoons. Sometimes he read her favorite books aloud, the ones she used to read to him when he couldn't sleep. Once, she reached for his hand when he read a line about love not needing salvation, only presence. See, she whispered, I don't need to get better to love you. I need to be loved like this. One morning, Samuel brought coffee to the porch and found Lola laughing with Caleb. He was telling stories about travelers who had come to Key West to find themselves, each leaving something behind. So what should I leave? She asked. A promise, he said. What kind of promise? That you'll remember you lived, not just existed. She nodded quietly. Samuel, listening from inside, felt both grateful and aching. That evening, as the sky turned crimson, Lola finished her painting. She handed it to him, her voice faint but bright. It's done. He looked to the sea, the house, two figures beneath the sunset. One tall in a white shirt, one in a long dress, her hair caught in the wind. Below, she had written in delicate script, for the one who stayed. He couldn't speak. He drew her close. I'm afraid I'll smudge it, he whispered. She smiled. Then I'll repaint it. Maybe next time, I'll paint you smiling wider. That night, they went to the beach. The moon was low, the waves slow and gentle. She leaned against him, eyes fixed on the horizon. Sam, she said softly, if I go tomorrow, don't hate the sea. You're not going anywhere, I know, but just in case. There is no just in case, she smiled faintly. You still talk like a man who thinks he can bargain with the universe. I only know I can't live in a world without you. You'll live. For me. She reached up and kissed his chin. You know, she whispered, I used to think love was a moment, but it's really everything that remains when everything else is gone. He held her hand, feeling each fragile heartbeat beneath his palm. Rain came and went the next day, leaving the air clean and bright. Lola slept most of the afternoon. Samuel sat by her, writing in her journal. April 10. The sea is brighter today. You're sleeping peacefully, like someone dreaming. I wish I could hold this dream forever. If this is a miracle, I won't ask for more. He closed the book, watching the light on the waves. The ocean shimmered endlessly, and through the sound of the surf, he thought he heard her voice faint, certain whispering, "I'm still here." Samuel smiled. Not because he believed she would recover, but because he felt their love already had. The 10th night in Key West. The air was soft, scented with salt and jasmine. The moonlight washed the little cottage in silver. Lola slept by the open window, her breathing shallow, lips curved in a fragile smile. Samuel sat outside with a cup of cold coffee, staring at the vast, silent sea. He'd never known such peace, or such fragility. He stepped back inside, sat by her bed, and held her hand. "Where are you now, Lola?" he whispered. "Am I in your dreams?" There was no answer, only the rhythm of her breath and the lull of waves beyond. By morning, the sun spilled through the curtains. He'd fallen asleep in the chair beside her. Her breathing was slower now. He checked the monitor, steady, but weak. When she opened her eyes, she found him watching. "You've been up all night? I didn't want to miss it if you woke. Afraid I'd leave while you were asleep." He hesitated. "I'm afraid of everything without you." She smiled. "Have you ever thought that maybe I won't get better?" "I have. And I still choose to believe." "In what?" "That love doesn't follow diagnosis." She gazed at him for a long moment, then whispered, "I think I love you more than I knew." That afternoon, the wind rose over the water. Waves crashed harder, white and wild. Samuel wrapped her in a blanket and wheeled her to the porch so she could watch the sea. "Every time the wind blows," she said, "I feel alive." "Why?" "Because it reminds me the world is still breathing with me." He held her hand. "I think the wind blows because of you." She laughed softly. "You always make reality sound prettier than it is." "No," he said. "I just see reality through the eyes that love you." She turned toward the horizon. "If you can't see me anymore one day, remember I'm still here in the wind, the coffee you make, the lavender you grow. I won't disappear. I'll change form." He bowed his head, his voice trembling. "Don't talk about it. I'm not ready." "You never will be, Sam." Her voice was barely audible, but it carried everything. That night, the wind fell still. Only the sea and the soft beep of machines filled the quiet. Samuel didn't sleep. He wrote again. April 14. "You said the wind is the world's breath. I believe you. If the wind stops tomorrow, I'll breathe for it. If you stop smiling, I'll find a way to make the sky smile for you. Just a little longer, my love. Stay." He put the pen down, went to her side, and stroked her hair. "I'm not leaving," he whispered. "Not ever." Around midnight, her breathing faltered. The alarm went off. He shouted for the nurse. Caleb ran in. A local doctor arrived, worked quickly, adjusting machines and injecting medicine. Through the chaos, Samuel sat motionless, gripping her hand, hearing every sound, the machines, the sea, the wind blending into a single trembling note. Then, silence. The doctor turned to him, voice low. "She's very weak. She might not make it through the night. Stay with her." Samuel sat down, shaking. He took her hand, kissed it. "Lola, can you hear me? Don't go. Not tonight. Not while the sea still sings like this." There was no response, only the curtain was stirring in the wind. He began to cry, the kind that breaks through every wall. "I thought I was strong," he whispered, "but I was only strong because of you. Without you, I'm nothing." He lowered his forehead to her hand, repeating like a prayer, "Stay, please stay." And for a moment, he thought he heard an answer, faint, fragile, but real. He looked up. The monitor still pulsed, weak, but steady. She was alive. He laughed through tears, gripping her hand. "I'm here, Lola. You're here. You're not going anywhere." Morning came with blinding light over the ocean. Caleb opened the door and found Samuel still there, head resting beside her, her hand in his. She was breathing slow, but even. "The worst has passed," the nurse said quietly. "She made it through the night." Samuel nodded, unable to speak. He turned toward the sea. The wind had returned, gentle and sweet, and he could almost hear her laughter. 3 days later, Lola woke. Sunlight fell across her face. "Were you crying?" she asked. He laughed softly. "No, the sun's just too bright. You're a terrible liar. I've never been able to lie to you." She glanced toward the window. "I'm still alive." "Yes," he whispered. "You are. And the sea is still this beautiful? Even more, because of you." She closed her eyes and smiled. "Maybe the sea heard me praying. Or maybe it heard me." "You don't pray, Sam." "No," he said. "I just love." That evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Samuel brought her to the porch again. The air glowed amber, wind playing through her hair. "Do you see?" he said softly. "The sea looks different today." "Yes," she murmured. "It's calmer, maybe because it knows you stayed." She turned to him, eyes shining. "When I was close to the edge," she said, "I heard a voice. It asked if you wanted to stay, and I thought of you. So I said, yes." He couldn't speak. He pulled her close, and together they sat in the soft hum of wind, waves, and light. That night, even the sea seemed to pause as if witnessing two souls who had just pulled their love back from the brink. And for the first time in months, Samuel truly smiled. Not because everything was fine, but because he had just seen a miracle, not from medicine, not from prayer, but from love itself, the love that chose to stay, just as she had taught him. May came, and with it, Key West's own version of spring, a season of gentle light and air scented with wildflowers. Brief rains swept in and faded just as quickly, leaving behind a sky clear as glass and air tasting of salt and renewal, like the first kiss after too long apart. Lola was learning to stand again in the white cottage by the sea. Samuel stood behind her, hands resting lightly at her waist, ready to catch her at the slightest tremor. "Slowly," he murmured, his voice full of patience. "I know," she replied, sweat glistening on her forehead. It had been more than 3 weeks since that night she came back from the edge between life and death. Her body was still frail, but her spirit was stronger than ever. The local doctor had said once, "She's not just recovering, she's being reborn." Every morning, Samuel made coffee while she drank ginger tea. They didn't turn on the TV, and there was no news or calls. The world was now just waves, wind, and their laughter. Lola practiced breathing by the shore. Samuel sat nearby, reading aloud the verses she once loved, Tagore, Rumi, and sometimes the quiet lines he had written just for her. One morning, when she managed to stand for several minutes on her own, she said softly, "You know, Sam, I think people only learn the value of time once they've counted every breath just to stay alive." He put his notebook down and looked at her. "Then I want you to count for me every breath of happiness. From now on, you sound like a poet." "No, just a man who almost lost his whole world." She smiled a thin, trembling smile like sunlight through mist, but it melted every trace of cold left in him. In the afternoons, they walked along the sand. Samuel pushed her chair, but sometimes she said, "Not today. I want to walk." Each step was unsteady. Each step, he hovered close, as if afraid the wind might take her. And then, under the amber light of sunset, Lola stepped barefoot onto the sand. The sand was warm. The sea breathed at her feet. "I did it," she whispered, half in disbelief. "I knew you would. You always know." "I have to. I made a deal with the ocean." "What deal?" "If you walked again, I'd never let you fall." She laughed through tears, and he knelt, holding her close as the waves touched their knees. An elderly couple walking by smiled. The woman said quietly, "Isn't that a miracle?" The man nodded. "That's what a miracle looks like." A week later, Lola could walk around the house unaided. Samuel began teaching her to dance again, not the perfect waltz they once knew, but slow, tender steps across the sunlit floor. He played La Vie en Rose, the song they'd chosen for their wedding. She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "I'll step on your feet." "Go ahead. I'm used to it. You said that on our wedding night." "And I meant it. They laughed and then they moved. Each step is small, imperfect, but real. When the music ended, she rested her head on his shoulder, eyes closed, breathing calmly. "See," she whispered, "we're living again. I never stopped. I did. But you came back. Maybe because you called. Maybe because you never left." At night, they sat on the porch swing Samuel had built himself. He read from his new notes. People say time heals all wounds. But really, it's love that does that first. Time is only the witness. She smiled toward the sea. "If love is the sea, I want to be the wave to keep returning to your shore." He looked at her, and in the twilight glow, he saw a different Lola, weaker in body, but luminous with life. One morning, while Samuel was making coffee, he heard soft music. Lola was at the window, paintbrush in hand. On the easel, the sea, pale light, and two figures walking hand in hand. "What's it called?" he asked. She turned, smiling widely. "The morning after the storm." "Because we've made it through?" "Yes, because we survived the storm, Sam." He rested his hand on her shoulder. "Where should we hang it?" "Somewhere I can see every day. So if one day I forget, you'll point to it and say, 'You made it through, remember?'" That afternoon, a Buddhist monk from the small temple nearby stopped by. They'd seen him before during their walks. "The young woman," he said, "is learning peace with herself. The young man, he's learning stillness." Samuel asked, "What does that mean to be still?" "To stop trying to fix everything. To love and be." "Thank you." The monk smiled. "Don't thank me. Just live that way." When he left, Lola took Samuel's hand. "You heard him. You don't have to save me anymore." "I'm not. I'm just standing behind you like the wind." Summer came early. One calm morning, the sea was glassy, the sky pale blue. Lola strolled to the water's edge, Samuel beside her. When the waves touched her ankles, she whispered, "I never thought I'd feel the ocean on my skin again. Now you do. It feels like being born again." She bent down, picked up a small, smooth stone, and placed it in his hand. "Keep it. When you feel weak, hold it. It'll remind you everything wears down, but nothing truly disappears." He closed his fist over the stone, as if holding the whole world. That night, under the moonlight, she leaned against his shoulder. "Do you remember when I said I'd stay, but didn't know for how long?" "I remember. Now I think I'll stay longer. Not because of a miracle, but because I want to. I don't need miracles, just you wanting to." She whispered into the breeze, "Thank you for never giving up." "I couldn't. You're the only thing I never gave up on." They sat in silence. The sound of "Can't Help Falling in Love" drifted from a nearby bar. Lola sang softly along her voice, thin but transparent, sweet as morning dew. Samuel watched her, and for the first time in months, the light in her eyes wasn't a reflection of fear, it was life itself. The next morning, as sunlight touched the sea, Lola wrote, "Day 30 inches Key West. I've stood, walked, laughed, painted, and lived. If tomorrow is a gift, then today is a miracle, and I'm learning to believe in that miracle, one day at a time." Samuel read it, said nothing, and just kissed her forehead. He didn't know what the future held, whether her illness would return, whether they'd stay here forever. But he knew this. They had won the greatest battle of all, the one to love and to stay. Day 35 inches Key West. The sky was clear as crystal, the sun laying gold silk across the sea. Lola woke early the first time without help. She poured her own water, then walked to the porch. Samuel woke moments later, saw her standing there, and froze. "You did it," he said, voice breaking. She turned, smiling like sunrise. "I know, and I wanted you to be the first to see." He came up behind her, arms around her waist. "I've always been behind you." "No, Sam," she whispered. "You've always been beside me." From then on, she painted every morning. Samuel built her a wooden easel from the same beams used on his old construction sites. "You're taking this seriously," she teased, "so you can paint the whole sky." Her first new piece was titled "The Horizon," the sea, the sun, and a line where they met no clear end. In the corner, two silhouettes stood hand in hand. Beneath it, she wrote, For those who fought to stay. When he read it, she said, "We're not survivors, Sam. We're the ones who chose to stay." He stared at the painting for a long time. "I want to make it real." "What do you mean?" "I want to build a place for people to find peace. Like you did." "What will you call it?" "The Horizon Project." Her eyes glistened with pride. "I don't know where you'll start." "With this painting," he said. Days later, Samuel called Margaret in Dallas. "I'll be staying in Florida a while." "I thought so," she said. "Because of her?" "Not just her. Because of everyone like her." She was quiet, then said gently, "You've found yourself again, Sam." "Maybe. For the first time, I'm not building houses to sell. I'm building them so people can live." He spread blueprints, small curved roof homes facing the sea, gardens, ponds, open rooms for painting and reflection. Lola added her touch, expansive windows and soft light. "I want every room to face the horizon," he said. "Why?" "Because if someone stares long enough at it, they might remember why they want to live." She smiled. "You've become part of the sky, Sam." They walked the island often. Locals greeted them warmly, the gentlewoman with a serene smile and the man with eyes both sad and bright. She ordered orange juice at a small seaside cafe, and he ordered espresso. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "Why not?" "Because I've met fear and realized death isn't as terrifying as not living." "You're living beautifully." "No, Sam. We are." Nearby tourists overheard, smiling softly. An older woman whispered, "They understand what most people never do." Samuel gathered a young team of architects as the Horizon Project began to take shape. They worked remotely, sketching and modeling, but he insisted on keeping Key West's spirit simple, open, human. Lola gave her input. "No white walls. White frightens people." "What color, then?" "The color of the sea. Or warm wood." "You sound like a designer." "No. I know what colors make the heart rest." And so the plans filled with ocean blue, soft wood, and the golden light of Key West mornings. Soon after, they received an email, initial funding approved by the Texas Health Foundation. Samuel smiled. "Good news?" she asked. "The best. So it'll be real?" "Yes, just like you." She squeezed his hand. "If I hadn't been sick, I might never have understood you. And if you hadn't come, I'd never have understood myself." As weeks passed, Lola grew stronger, her hair longer, her skin sun-kissed. Locals greeted them, calling, "Morning, sunshine," and both would laugh, because they knew how true it was. One morning, Samuel said, "I want to host a small exhibition before we return to Dallas." "Exhibition?" "Your paintings. I want people to see the light that saved me. I'm an artist. You're what makes people want to live. They need to see that." She smiled. "Only if I can hang the first painting myself." "Deal." A week later, she climbed a small step stool, hands trembling but steady, while he held it firm. "Careful," he murmured. "I'm fine." She hung the horizon on the wall. Stepping back, tears welled in her eyes. He touched her shoulder. "Beautiful." "Not the painting," she said softly. "The feeling of knowing I'm still alive." The exhibition filled their little house with neighbors, new friends, and even a few guests from Dallas. 12 paintings hung on the walls, each a chapter of their journey, from the white hospital room to Key West's dawn. Samuel didn't give a speech. He just stood beside her as she spoke. Someone asked, "Does love heal illness?" She smiled gently. "No, but love makes you want to live long enough for the miracle to arrive." Silence. Then applause. Samuel looked at her. She didn't look back, only smiled. That night, after everyone left, they walked to the sea. The moon was complete, the waves were gentle, and the stars were scattered across the sky. "Do you remember that night in Dallas?" she asked. "When I proposed?" "Yes. I thought love was a beginning. And now? Now I know love is the whole journey." "Our journey's still going," he said, "and I'll walk every step with you." She took his hand. Their shadows stretched across the sand, merging until there was no line between them, only one shape, one light. The next morning, Samuel wrote the first line of the Horizon Project proposal: "For those who have reached their limits, yet still choose love." For Lola, who taught me that staying is its own kind of courage." He closed the notebook and looked out toward the sea. Lola was walking on the sand, white dress catching the wind, arms open to the Sunday. She turned and called, "Sam, hurry, the waves are coming." He laughed, running toward her as water splashed and light scattered like 1,000 diamonds around them. That was the morning he understood. Happiness isn't something you hold, but something you walk through, together. September greeted their return to Dallas with golden sunlight and a vast sky that almost hurt. As the plane touched down at Love Field, Samuel glanced at Lola, her hand in his, her eyes trembling between fear and wonder. "You know," she whispered, "I never thought I'd see this city again." "Neither did I," he replied. "But maybe every journey leads us back to where it began, only with a different heart." She smiled. "Then I'm ready." Dallas had changed during the months they were away. It was still loud, still restless, but to them it looked like an old painting newly cleaned of dust. Samuel brought her back to the 45th floor penthouse where everything began. Love, loss, and a miracle. When the door opened, Lola stopped. The room was unchanged. Beige sofa, expansive windows framing the city, a vase of dried lavender still holding its faint scent. She ran her fingers along the chair, her voice trembling. "It feels like I'm looking at myself." Samuel stood behind her. "And what do you see?" "A girl who almost died and a man who learned how to live. I think both of them were reborn." The next morning, Samuel went to Preston Developments for the first time in half a year. When he entered, the staff stood and applauded quietly. Margaret came out of a meeting and embraced him. "Welcome home, Sam. Thank you for keeping the company standing." She smiled. "We didn't just keep the company, we kept your faith." He unfolded the blueprints on the table. "Margaret, this is the Horizon Project. We'll build it on the old lot near Trinity Lake." Her eyes lit as she studied the plans. "You're turning it into a center for emotional and artistic healing. Not just healing. A place where people can learn how to stay, and I assume this is for her and for everyone like her." A few weeks later, they held the groundbreaking ceremony. That morning, Dallas was impossibly blue. Lola wore a simple white dress, her hair pulled back, standing beside Samuel before a sign that read, "The Horizon Project, a place to breathe again." Samuel spoke briefly, his voice no longer sharp as in old press conferences. It was low, deliberate, the voice of someone who had lost and found again. "We build many things, houses, towers, cities. But the hardest thing to build is faith. Today, we're not breaking ground for a building, but for a belief that love, even in darkness, can become light." Silence hung over the crowd when he stopped. Then applause rose like wind. Lola squeezed his hand, eyes glistening. "You spoke my heart," she whispered. "I just said what you taught me." They lived between the penthouse and the construction site in the following months. Samuel oversaw the work. Lola designed the art therapy program. She invited painters, musicians, and writers who had turned their pain into creation. One afternoon, she held the first art class in a temporary hall. About 20 people came, those recovering from depression, chronic illness, or grief. She sat among them, her hand trembling slightly but her voice clear. "I'm not a doctor. I'm someone who once lost faith. And I learned this: you don't have to defeat fear or let it block your view of the sky." A woman wept. A young man smiled. And from the doorway, watching, Samuel knew the horizon had come alive. That night, back home, she leaned against him. "I never thought I'd stand before people and talk about it. Because you're brave. No. Because you're here. No, Lola. You did it because you wanted to. I only witnessed it." She smiled softly. "Then you're the most beautiful witness I could have asked for." By December, the Horizon Project completed its first phase. Small, warm buildings rose from green grass, their glass reflecting the lake's light. At sunset, the whole place shimmered like a painting of hope. They walked hand in hand along the stone paths. "See how the light pours through every window," she said. "I told you I built it exactly as you drew it. That's why they're calling it my project." "No," he smiled. "It's ours." That evening, back at the penthouse, Dallas glittered beyond the glass. Samuel poured wine. Lola sat by the piano. "You know," she said, I used to be afraid of silence. Now I find it beautiful. Silence is where love is heard the clearest. You sound like a philosopher. No, just a man listening to his heart. She turned, smiling. And what does it say? That I'll never leave this light again. A week later, they did their first televised interview. The reporter asked Lola, if you could say one thing to people who've lost hope, what would it be? She looked into the camera, voice calm as the sea. I'd say sometimes miracles don't come to save you. They come to show you beauty in what's already broken. And if you're standing in the storm, remember the horizon always holds light. The reporter turned to Samuel. And you? He took Lola's hand and smiled. I'd just say if you find someone who makes you want to stay, don't ever let go. Afterward they walked outside. Rain began to fall, soft and warm, just like the night he'd proposed. They walked hand in hand under the streetlights reflected in puddles. Lola looked up. I love the rain. Why? Because it reminds me I'm alive, not just existing. That's the 10th time you've said that. Because it's always true. He laughed and kissed her forehead. You know, I used to think love ended with marriage. Now I know it begins when we learn how to stay. You're a quick learner. I had a good teacher. She laughed, wrapping her arms around him in the rain. In Dallas, in a season that belonged only to them, returned, changed, deeper and at peace. By March, Dallas bloomed in the colors of a new spring. The sky was bright, the wind mild, and white blossoms were opening along Trinity Lake. That morning, the Horizon Project officially opened. Samuel stood at the gate, watching people line up, patients, doctors, artists, the young and the old, all with the same quiet hope in their eyes. Beside him, Lola, in a sea blue dress, whispered, I didn't think this day would come so soon. Neither did I, he said. But if miracles exist, they're right here. They walked together through glass doors etched with the words, for those who stayed. The campus spread like a small village, cottages around the lake, paths of stone winding between gardens. The main hall curved in wood and glass. Lola stopped before the entrance. Do you see it? See what? The light. It reaches every corner, just like you painted. No, just like I felt. She stepped inside, and it was like walking into a dream she'd once had. Only this time, it was real. During the opening ceremony, reporters filled the hall. Samuel spoke briefly, then invited her to the stage. She stood there, thinner, radiant, her voice soft as wind. 2 years ago, I lay in a hospital bed, not knowing how long I had. I thought I was weak. I was wrong. Strength isn't fighting death, it's loving life, even when it trembles. This place was built not just from design, but from the hands of those who chose to stay. Tears shimmered across the audience. A young doctor whispered, this isn't just a center, it's proof that miracles exist. Samuel watched her, his heart full of quiet pride. After the ceremony, they walked the halls together. Her 12 paintings hung along the corridor, telling their story from darkness to dawn. A young woman approached, her voice shaking. Miss Lola, I have an autoimmune illness. I read about you. I just wanted to say thank you for making me less afraid. Lola took her hand gently. Don't thank me. Just stay. The girl cried. Samuel, standing behind, squeezed his wife's hand. That night, they returned home late. Dallas glowed like a field of stars. Lola sat by the window, gazing out. Do you see it? The horizon is alive. I see. I'm scared, though. Why? Because now it's not just ours. It belongs to everyone. He sat beside her. You haven't lost it, Lola. We're just sharing what once saved us. Do you think we can keep our peace? We don't have to keep it. Just remember it. She rested her head on his shoulder. Remember that all light begins in darkness. The Horizon Project became a haven for those seeking healing in the following months. The press called it Dallas's Miracle of Humanity. Universities invited Samuel to lecture on emotional architecture, how to design spaces that help people feel loved. He stood before the students and said slowly, every building is a promise. We don't just build shelter, we build belief that life is worth living. When he came home that evening, Lola was painting. She turned, smiling. What did you say that made everyone clap? I told them about you. Are you tired? No, just missing the sea. Me too. Maybe we should go back to Key West. I'll buy that cottage again. No need. It already lives in us. One rainy afternoon, they visited the horizon. Water rippled across the lake in widening circles. She stood on the porch, breathing in the scent of wet earth. I used to hate rain, she said. It reminded me of cold nights in the hospital. But now, I think it's beautiful. Why? Because now I know rain is another kind of rebirth. He looked at her, light reflecting off her face, and he remembered that night in Key West when she opened her eyes, and love had won. He whispered, "Do you know what makes me happiest?" "What?" "Not the horizon, not the headlines, just waking up and seeing you every morning." She smiled, leaned in to kiss him. "Then promise you'll wake me with that kiss every day." He promised. In June, the horizon celebrated its first fully recovered patient, a young woman who had learned to walk again. She sent them a card. "Thank you for believing in what I couldn't yet believe. Now, I do." Lola's tears fell as she read it. Samuel wiped them away. "See? The light's spreading." "Yes," she whispered. "But you know what's strange?" "What?" "I don't feel drained when I share anymore. I feel lighter. Maybe love doesn't empty when you give it. It grows." That evening, they sat outside watching the moonlight glint on the city's glass towers. "What do you think about the future?" she asked. "I think we'll grow old together, maybe not in Dallas, maybe somewhere the sea meets the sky." "You'd still choose Key West?" "I'd choose wherever you are." She laughed softly, then fell quiet. The wind carried a faint scent of lavender. "I used to fear endings," she said, "but now I know love doesn't end. It just changes form." "Into what?" "Into memory, into buildings, into stories, into us." Samuel looked at her, his heart full of something beyond words, not passion, not fear, but the peace of someone who had weathered the storm and learned to love in stillness. That night, before sleeping, Lola wrote in her journal, "Day 110 of the horizon. This place has welcomed over 200 souls, each with their own story, yet in every pair of eyes, I see the same thing, light. Miracles aren't in what we build, but in how we live together." She set down the pen and turned toward Samuel. He was reading, the lamplight warm on his face. "Sam," she whispered, "you know something. I've never seen my life look this beautiful." He smiled, took her hand. "I know, because I feel the same." Outside, Dallas shimmered against the night, and in that quiet room, two people who had faced the edge and found their way back were left with the simplest, most actual gift life can give: to be together, to love, and to live fully. A year after the Horizon project opened, Dallas had changed, not because of new skyscrapers, but because of the people who had walked out from that place, people whose eyes now carried the gentle light of those who had found a reason to live again. Samuel and Lola still lived in their old penthouse, but it felt different now. No smell of medicine, no sleepless nights, only soft jazz, laughter, and the aroma of morning coffee. When the city was still wrapped in mist each dawn, Samuel made coffee while Lola read the paper. "Do you know what makes me happiest?" she asked once. "What?" "Not the sea, not the horizon. It's waking up, seeing you, and knowing I still have time." He smiled, handing her the cup. "And you're the reason I wake up." In April, Samuel received an invitation from Boston. The New England Institute of Architecture wanted him to join a short-term research program on restorative architecture, a field he had helped to shape. Margaret said, "You should go. That project could expand the Horizon's influence nationwide." He hesitated. That night, over dinner, he told Lola, "What would you think if I went to Boston for 3 months?" She looked up, her eyes still but soft. 3 months? "Yeah. I don't want to leave you, but you need to go. I understand. I'm afraid you'll get tired. You forget? I've survived worse than 3 months without you." She smiled, but something in that smile made his heart ache. The night before his flight, it drizzled. They stood by the window, watching the drops slide down the glass. "I'm scared," he whispered. "Of what?" "I haven't been away from you this long since Key West. I'm not a child, Sam. I know, but you're my heart." She turned, brushed her lips against his. "Then take it with you. But remember to bring it back." He laughed. "Promise." Boston greeted him with chill air and maple trees blazing red. It was beautiful, serene, but something inside him was missing. He lectured, joined workshops, and met young architects. Everyone asked about the horizon, and he always mentioned her first. "I didn't create a miracle," he said. "I just built a place where one could happen, and the first miracle I ever witnessed was named Lola." Every night, he video called her. She was always by the window, Dallas lights glowing behind her. "Have you eaten?" "Yeah. It's cold here. I miss the Texas Sunday. I'll send you some through the screen." "Send yourself, too. I'm right here." Sometimes the connection was weak, her face blurred, but he could still hear her laugh. And that was enough to warm the small apartment in the frozen city. One morning, on his way to the institute, his phone buzzed. The Horizon just received a new expansion grant. "We'll have another wing by the lake. I'm so proud of you." He stopped in the middle of the street, smiling to himself. People stared, thinking he'd just won something great. But for him, that message was everything. While he was in Boston, Lola changed, too. She began writing. Her reflections from the horizon spread widely online. A publisher offered to turn them into a book for those who stayed. Margaret helped her edit. After reading the manuscript, she said, "You write simply, but every line feels like it touches the heart." Lola smiled. "I just wrote as if I were talking to myself, and that's why people believe you." In Boston, Samuel often walked along the Charles River at sunset. One evening, stopping to watch the water glowing gold beneath the fading light, he typed a message. "I just saw the sun on the river. It looks exactly like Key West. Except you're not here." She replied, "Light is the same everywhere, Sam. You have to carry it inside you." He read that line again and again like a prayer. 3 months passed faster than he expected. On his last day in Boston, he stood at the lectern and said, "I came here to teach, but learned how to miss instead." Because missing is just another form of love. Applause filled the hall. A student asked, "Will you come back?" He smiled. "I need to go home first. Someone's holding my heart." When the plane landed in Dallas, he nearly ran through the terminal. Lola was waiting, long coat, hair moving in the warm breeze. He stopped for a second, memorizing her in that light. She smiled, opened her arms. "You're home." "I'm home." He hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar lavender in her hair. 3 months was too long, he murmured. "I know. But look, we're still here." Still. That evening, they sat on the balcony, wind from Trinity Lake drifting in. Lola told him about the book. He told her about the lectures. "You know what's funny?" she said. "They want to turn my book into a documentary." "You'll say yes?" "Maybe. But only if you direct it." "Me? No one else knows me like you do." They laughed and clinked glasses. Later, when she slept, Samuel stood by the window. Dallas shimmered below 1,000 reflections of memory. He thought of the years behind them, the hospital, Key West, every fragile breath that had turned into peace. He opened his notebook and wrote, "Love, when it surpasses fear, stops being fire, it becomes light, and that light never goes out." He closed the book, went back to bed, took her hand, and whispered, "I'm home, Lola, and I'm staying." Outside, Dallas breathed quietly. A new season began. No pain, no fear, only a love steady and calm as wind through an open palm. The book For Those Who Stayed was published that summer by Harper and Madison. The cover bore Lola's painting, "The Horizon Blue Sea, Golden Horizon." Within 2 weeks, it became a New York Times bestseller. America began to talk about the story of those who stayed. Morning shows invited them, newspapers wrote features, and social media flooded with photos of them tagged, "For Those Who Stayed." In their first New York interview, the host asked, "Lola, when you wrote this, did you ever imagine you'd become a symbol of hope?" She smiled modestly. "No. I wrote to remember that I had lived. If someone finds hope in that story, that's the most beautiful part of telling it." Samuel watched her as if seeing her for the first time. He had always known she was strong, but only now, seeing her speak to the world calmly, did he realize she had truly won. After the show, they walked through Central Park, horses, musicians, people with paper cups of coffee. "Look," she said, The whole city's alive, just like you. I'm still scared sometimes, she admitted. Scared they'll put me too high. You don't have to stand above anyone, Lola. Just beside them. You think I'm strong enough for that? I know you are. They stopped by the lake, the moon scattering silver across the surface. You know, she whispered. When people say I'm inspiring, I remember the days I couldn't even sit up, and I'm afraid I'll forget that feeling of being small, weak, but real. You won't forget, he said. That's what makes you beautiful. 2 months later, they began a speaking tour across the country. Every venue was packed from Los Angeles to Seattle, Chicago to Miami. People stood, applauded, cried, and laughed as Lola told her story. Samuel usually sat beside her, silent but watchful. He touched her shoulder lightly whenever she faltered, and that was enough. In Denver, a 4-year-old boy stood up and said, "My mom has the same illness, but when she read your book, she said she wanted to live longer. Thank you." Lola couldn't speak. Samuel answered for her, "Don't thank us. Just love your mum the way she's always loved you. That's enough." Fame, however, had its price. The media chased them constantly. Tabloids invented relationship conflicts to sell headlines. One night in San Francisco, Lola put down a newspaper and sighed. "They're turning our story into a commodity. I know. I'm afraid it'll lose its meaning. No one can take that away unless you let them. Aren't you tired?" "Of course. But it's worth it if this story helps even one person stay for one more night." She looked at him, whispering, "I just want us to remember why we began. We won't forget, Lola." After 2 months on the road, they returned to Dallas. The penthouse was the same, but they were not. She walked to the piano and ran her fingers across the keys. "Do you remember when I learned to walk again? I remember every step. Back then, I needed someone to believe I wouldn't fall, and you did. Now I want to do that for others." "What do you mean?" "I want to start an art therapy class at the Horizon. Not just for patients, but for caregivers too. Because I've realized, sometimes the ones who stay are the ones who need healing most." He stared at her, moved. "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "Then let's do it. Let's." The first class opened in October. In the sunlit room, Lola spoke to a group of mostly family members of patients. "I know how it feels to be strong for someone else. But remember, it's okay to be fragile sometimes. Only when we admit our hurt can we genuinely love." After the class, Samuel waited at the door. She came out, eyes red but smiling. "You know," she said, "every time I tell our story, I feel a little more healed. That's why you survived to heal others." "No," she whispered, "to love longer." In December, the Horizon Project held a special event, the Night of Those Who Stayed. Over 500 former patients returned, bringing their stories. Lights glowed across the campus, music played softly, and paintings told tales of rebirth. Lola stood on stage beside Samuel and said, "Tonight when I look around, I don't see patients. I see people who choose to love, even knowing they could lose. Thank you for staying." When she finished, hundreds of phone lights rose into the sky, the lake sparkling like a field of stars. Samuel squeezed her hand, eyes wet. "Do you see it?" she asked. "See what?" "The miracle. It was never just ours." That night, they came home late. Dallas slept, but their hearts stayed awake. She sat down and opened her journal. Day 730 since Key West. "I've lived, loved, and told my story. Now I understand. The true miracle wasn't that I was saved, but that I could help save others." She closed the notebook and turned to him. "Sam? Yeah? Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Loving me, knowing I could leave at any moment." He smiled softly. "I only regret not finding you sooner." She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. They held each other in the quiet, in the city, knowing their love was no longer a story to be told, but a pulse in the world's heartbeat. And when dawn came, sunlight spilling through the glass, Samuel looked at her eyes closed, lips curved in peace, and knew that no matter how many seasons apart awaited them, they would always find each other, because those who stay always recognize their light, even in the dark. 10 years had passed since that morning in Key West, the morning Samuel once believed would be the last miracle of his life. But miracles, it turned out, don't end. They changed shape. Dallas was different now. The Horizon Project had become the largest recovery center in Texas, with new branches in Colorado and Oregon. Samuel, his hair now touched with gray, still came there every morning, sitting at the same old wooden table, watching the sunlight ripple over Trinity Lake. The original painting, The Horizon, hung on his office wall, its colors faded slightly, yet it was still alive as the day Lola first painted it. As for her now, Lola Preston, her name appeared in 6 books, and her voice symbolized resilience and grace. Her tone was still gentle, her eyes bright, though her body sometimes faltered under the echoes of old illness. That morning, Samuel brewed coffee while she arranged lavender in a vase. "Do you recognize this scent?" she asked. "I could never forget," he said with a smile. "Me neither. It's the scent of the day I came back to life. And for me," he replied, "it's the day I learned to love for real." She laughed softly. "And what does it mean to love for real? To love without holding on to be content, just knowing the other still exists." She looked at him, eyes tender. "And we're still here, Sam, and still in love." In October, the Horizon celebrated its 10th anniversary. The event was broadcast nationwide, yet it was simply another quiet, beautiful day together for them. When Samuel stepped on stage, the room fell silent. He carried no formal speech, only a small folded note. He said, "When we began, I just wanted to save one person. Then I learned that it's not about saving but walking alongside. Thousands choose to stay in 10 years not for me or this place, but for love itself. And if this world still exists, it's because of people like them." Lola sat in the front row, tears shining. When he stepped down, she rose to embrace him amid the applause. "You still speak as beautifully as ever," she whispered. "I only repeat what you taught me." That night, they returned to their old apartment. Autumn in Dallas was calm and quiet, city lights spilling through the glass like falling stars. Samuel poured wine. Lola played their old jazz record, Moon River, the song they used to listen to during her treatment. "Isn't it strange," she said, "how life works? I once feared I wouldn't survive my first winter. Now we've had 10. You won, Lola." "No, I didn't win. I just kept going. Going on is winning." She smiled. "And you, Sam, are you afraid of time?" "I used to be. Not anymore. Time only takes what we cling to, but it leaves behind what's true." "What's true?" "You." She fell silent, then took his hand. "I feel like time is sitting here with us, Sam, and it's smiling." A week later, a letter arrived from Stanford University. They wanted to award Lola an honorary doctorate for her contribution to community mental health. She laughed, almost disbelieving. "I only wrote a few books. Books that helped millions stay. Do you think I should go?" "You must. Not for the honor, but to prove that hope can become a field of study." That January, they flew to California. Stanford in winter was breathtaking, red leaves along stone paths, thin mist drifting over the hills. When Lola stepped to the podium, the hall rose to its feet. She spoke briefly, yet no one forgot her words. 10 years ago, I lay in a hospital bed and thought the world was ending. But it wasn't ending. I was waiting to open my eyes. Because every time we choose to stay, we save the little world within us. After the ceremony, students lined up for photos and autographs. A girl of Mexican descent said softly, "Miss Lola, my mom reads your book every day. She says because of you, she found the courage to start again." Lola smiled. "Then tell your mom that you are the reason she stayed." From a distance, Samuel watched them. He thought if anything is immortal, it's the love that passes from one soul to another. They returned to Dallas in February. Lola began working less, spending more time journaling, planting flowers, and painting. Samuel walked around the lake every afternoon, where sunlight mirrored like glass. One day, he came home to find her in front of the easel. The canvas showed no sea, no horizon, only 2 figures standing hand in hand amid a snowy forest. "What's this one called?" he asked. She turned, smiling softly. "Love Beyond Winter." "Why?" "Because I wanted to paint love after all the seasons, when the leaves are gone, when the snow covers everything, and only 2 remain, still there, still looking at each other." He came behind her and wrapped his arms around her. "I think this is your most beautiful painting." Why? Because it doesn't speak about miracles, it is one. That evening, they sat by the window, watching the city. Lola asked, "Do you ever think about the far future?" "Sometimes. What do you think we'll be like?" "The same as now, just with grayer hair and shakier hands, still holding tight." She smiled faintly. "And if one day I go first, you'll keep living, right?" "Lola, I'm not being sad. I want to know." He paused, then said slowly, "I'll live, because I'll know you're still here in everything I do." She nodded. "That's enough." That night, snow began to fall rare in Dallas. The city went quiet, lights glinting off white rooftops. Lola opened the balcony door and breathed deeply. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "The sound of snow. I thought snow was silent." "No, Sam. It speaks very softly, like winter saying it's almost done." He wrapped his arm around her. "Every season leaves," he said. "But we stay." "Yes, because we're part of each other." She leaned into him. Outside, snow kept falling gentle, silent, a witness to love that had weathered everything and remained whole. Spring returned to Dallas, with soft rain tapping the glass roof of the Horizon Project. Trinity Lake shimmered blue, and the trees along the path sprouted new leaves. Samuel stood on the balcony of the main building, holding a cup of tea, watching people stroll through the gardens, laughing, talking, as if the world had never known darkness. In one corner, Lola sat surrounded by kids born with chronic illness, their eyes bright as candles. She taught them to paint the sun, each in a different color. When Samuel approached, a little girl looked up and cried, "Mr. Samuel, Miss Lola said I should paint the light in my heart." He smiled. "Did you?" "I did. But I don't know what color the light in my heart is." He knelt beside her. "It's the color of whoever you love most." The girl thought, then chose orange, the same color as that old bouquet of tulips. Lola met his eyes, tears shimmering as she smiled. "You remembered," she said softly. "You never forgot." That evening, they sat on the porch, watching the sun fade. March wind carried the scent of lavender and damp earth. "You know something strange," she said. "Every spring, I feel young again." "Because you are spring, Lola." "No, Sam, because I have you to see it with me." She held his hand. Her fingers were thinner now, but warm. "You once said love is not holding on," she whispered. "Now I understand. Love is letting someone be free and still choosing to come back." He looked toward the horizon. The sun was sinking, but its light lingered on the water, soft as breath. "I think," he said, "that's what we've done all our lives, come back, no matter how far we've gone." That summer, the Horizon Project entered its 11th year. They opened a new garden, Lola's Grove, filled with lavender and orange blossoms. A small plaque read, "A place where every soul may stay." At the opening, hundreds attended. Samuel spoke briefly. "This isn't a garden of remembrance. It's a garden of life." Because Lola believed that no death is an ending, only another season beginning. She stood beside him, hand in his. As applause rose, she turned to him. "I never thought my name would be carved on wood while still alive. I wanted people to read it while you could still smile. You always find a way to make everything gentle, Sam, because you taught me how." By September, her health began to fade. The illness returned not fiercely, just a quiet reminder of time. She tired more easily and walked more slowly, painlessly. She was tired, smiled, and loved. One night, they sat in the living room. Dallas glowed outside the window. "Are you afraid, Sam?" she asked. "Of what?" "Of when I'm gone." He paused, then said softly, "I'm not afraid to lose you. I'm only afraid of not hearing your laugh." "Then you must remember it." "I already do, and I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered, "because if love is real, it will find its way back." He held her hand for a long time, memorizing its warmth. Months later, she grew weaker. She no longer visited the horizon. She stayed home, finishing her final book, The Light After Winter. Samuel typed as she dictated. Each night, they sat together, and she spoke, and he wrote. She said, "I used to think miracles came from the sky. Now I know they come from the hand that holds yours when everything falls apart." When he typed that line, tears fell on the keyboard. She laid her hand over his. "Don't be sad," she said softly. "I've lived far beyond any doctor's guess. I didn't defeat illness, I defeated fear. And you taught me," he said, "how to love without fear." That winter, snow came to Dallas, the first in years. Samuel helped her onto the balcony. She wore a wool scarf, her silver hair catching the flakes. Snow fell gently on her shoulders, melting slowly, as if time was softening. "Do you remember?" he asked. "We stood like this 10 years ago." "I do. Back then, I thought, if there's another life, I want to meet you before I ever learn to be afraid." "And you did." "Yes. We met again in this same life." She leaned into him. "Sam," she whispered, "don't be sad when I go. I'm just going back to where the light begins." He squeezed her hand. "I know, but I'll still talk to you every day." She smiled faintly. "You know what they say, true lovers meet in dreams. Then I'll dream every night." That February, Lola left in her sleep, as peacefully as she had smiled. That morning, Dallas lay beneath a white mist. Samuel sat beside her, holding her hand, his lips touching her old wedding ring. No tears, only the quiet warmth of a life fully shared. 3 months later, the Horizon Project held a memorial Lola's light. Thousands came, lighting candles around Trinity Lake. Samuel spoke briefly, his voice now rough but steady. "She hasn't vanished. She's dissolved into everything kind. There's a piece of her light in every breath of those who stay." When he finished, the lake shimmered with thousands of candles. A breeze passed through, carrying the scent of lavender, a scent only he would recognize. He smiled. "Hello, Lola." Years later, people said snow would fall every winter night at the Horizon Project. And if you stood by Trinity Lake with your eyes closed, you could hear someone laughing softly in the wind. Samuel lived another 10 years. He never remarried, never left Dallas. Each morning, he walked through Lola's grove, sat on the wooden bench by the lake, and whispered, "You're still here." He always carried a worn copy of The Light After Winter, reading its last lines again and again. Love doesn't end when one of us leaves. It only changes shape, from voice to memory, from touch to wind, from lover to light. One spring morning, they found Samuel on that same bench, peaceful smile, eyes closed, one hand resting on the open book. Beside him lay a bouquet of orange tulips, her favorite flowers. That day, Dallas shone strangely bright, and across the western sky, 2 streaks of light crossed like horizons meeting again. Somewhere, perhaps where the sea meets endless light, Lola smiled, reaching out her hand. Samuel stepped toward her, as if he had never been away. "You taught me how to stay," he said, "and you taught me to believe in forever." They took each other's hands and walked into the light, and the world, still turning, seemed just a little more at peace.